The ceaseless rhythm of the waves was a constant counterpoint to Leo Fernandez's life in Seabreeze. For most, the ocean was a lullaby, a playground, a source of livelihood. For Leo, it was a beautiful, terrifying behemoth he'd learned to navigate only from a distance. Every crashing wave was a reminder, every scent of salt spray a whisper of a past he desperately tried to outswim. At 24, Leo was a quiet fixture in the quaint coastal town. His small shop, Tide's Echo, showcased his intricate driftwood sculptures and seascapes painted with a melancholic beauty that belied his fear. He'd lived in Seabreeze his entire life, a place where the ocean was inextricably woven into the fabric of existence, yet he rarely ventured beyond the wet sand, never dipping more than his toes into the frothing edge. His days were a carefully constructed routine. Unlock the shop, sand a piece of gnarled cypress, paint the endless blues and greens, and watch the distant horizon. He'd observe the surfers, the swimmers, the joyful chaos of children building sandcastles, always from the safe remove of the boardwalk or his shop window. A shadow clung to him, a silent companion born 12 years ago on a deceptively calm summer afternoon. He was 12 then, his younger brother, Marco, 8. They were playing near the shallows, chasing hermit crabs, when a rogue current, unannounced and unseen, had dragged Marco from his grasp. Leo still felt the slick, cold skin of his brother's hand slipping away, the terror in Marco's wide, brown eyes. He'd tried, oh God, he'd tried. He'd fought the pull, screamed for help, but the ocean, indifferent and mighty, had claimed Marco before anyone could reach them. Leo had been pulled from the water, half-drowned, gasping but alive. A survivor, haunted by the ghost of a hand he couldn't hold. Seabreeze knew of the tragedy, of course. It was a small town. They'd watched Leo grow into a reserved young man, respectful of his grief, but subtly puzzled by his unwavering fear. Why stay in a place that caused such pain? Leo stayed because it was home, because leaving felt like abandoning Marco, and because, in a strange, masochistic way, he felt anchored by the very thing that terrified him. Among the many children who frequented the beach was Anna, a spirited 7-year-old with a sun-kissed braid and a laugh as bright as the morning sun. Leo often saw her, fearless and energetic, darting along the water's edge, chasing seagulls, building elaborate sand kingdoms. Her parents, busy setting up their beach camp or chatting with neighbors, often let her explore, confident in the typically gentle nature of Seabreeze Cove. Leo, however, always felt a prickle of anxiety when he saw her venture too far, a silent warning bell ringing in his chest. A child so close to the water, so full of innocent trust. It hit too close to home. One blustery afternoon in late summer, the air was thick with the scent of an approaching storm. The sky, usually a brilliant azure, was bruised purple and gray on the horizon. The waves, typically gentle rollers, crashed with a menacing roar against the shore, their white caps like bared teeth. Despite the ominous forecast, a few families, including Anna's, had decided to squeeze in one last beach day before the storm fully hit. Leo, feeling an uneasy tremor in his stomach, had closed his shop early. He walked along the boardwalk, his gaze fixed on the churning expanse of the ocean. The wind whipped his hair, carrying the shouts of warning from the few lifeguards still on duty. He saw Anna, a tiny splash of yellow against the darkening sand, giggling as she dared to let the powerful surf wash over her ankles. Her parents were a little further up the beach, packing away their picnic. A particularly large wave loomed, curling high before crashing down with a sound like thunder. It receded, dragging with it a powerful undertow, greedy and swift. And then a scream. Not a playful shriek, but a sound of pure terror that shredded the air. Leo's head snapped up. His blood ran cold. Anna. The yellow swimsuit was now a distant bobbing speck in the churning gray. The undertow had snatched her, pulling her out with horrifying speed. She was flailing, her small arms thrashing uselessly against the current that dragged her further and further from the shore. Her parents were screaming, running towards the water, but the current was too strong, the distance too great. Other beachgoers gasped, pointed, made futile gestures. One man, a strong swimmer, plunged in, but the ocean, in its fury, quickly pushed him back, sputtering and defeated. Leo felt the familiar, paralyzing grip of ice around his chest. The world narrowed to the sight of that struggling child. It was Marco all over again. The same frantic movements, the same desperate cries, the same terrifying, indifferent ocean. A sickening wave of nausea washed over him, his breath catching in his throat. He could feel the phantom cold of Marco's hand slipping away, the guilt fresh and sharp piercing him. His legs felt like cement. His lungs burned. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. Help her. Someone, please. Anna's mother's voice was a raw, guttural cry that echoed Leo's own silent scream from all those years ago. Anna was barely visible now, a tiny, desperate beacon of yellow. Her cries were fainter, swallowed by the roar of the ocean. She was going under. Not again. The thought screamed through Leo's mind. Not again. Not another child. Not on his watch. He saw Anna's tear-streaked face in the distance, and for a fleeting, searing moment, it wasn't Marco's face. It was Anna's. A living child, this child in immediate, terrifying danger. The image of those desperate, flailing arms jolted him out of his paralysis. The guilt of the past, instead of drowning him, suddenly fueled a desperate, primal urge to act. He wouldn't let it happen again. He couldn't. With a choked cry that was half gasp, half roar, Leo shed his sandals, throwing them aside. He didn't think, he just moved. He ran, a blur of motion, past the screaming parents, past the helpless onlookers, towards the crashing waves. He hit the water with a desperate, jarring splash, the cold shock momentarily stealing his breath, but he pushed past it. He plunged in, the icy grip of the past trying to pull him down with every stroke. The current was brutal, a powerful, unseen hand trying to shove him back, to drown him in his terror. The waves crashed over his head, disorienting him, filling his mouth with the taste of salt and fear. He remembered Marco, the cold, the dark, the helplessness. But he pushed harder. He focused on the distant yellow speck, a tiny, fading light in the vast gray. Kick. Pull. Breathe. His muscles burned. His lungs ached. Every stroke was a battle, not just against the ocean, but against the 12 years of fear that had shaped him. The memories swirled around him like the angry currents. Marco's face, the water filling his mouth, the feeling of being dragged under. He fought them all. He imagined Marco was watching, not with judgment, but with a silent plea to save this child. Finally, agonizingly, he was close. Anna was barely conscious, her small body limp, her eyes wide with terror and exhaustion. He saw her face, so pale, her lips blue. "Anna," he gasped, spitting out water. "Hold on. I've got you." He reached for her, his arm catching her around the chest. She was impossibly light, yet the current made it feel like he was trying to hold on to a lead weight. He could feel her shuddering. He pulled her close, positioning her to minimize the drag, remembering a half-forgotten skill from a forgotten past, an instinctual knowledge of how to fight the water. "It's okay," he murmured, his voice hoarse, more for himself than for her. "We're going to make it." The swim back was even harder. He was exhausted, every muscle screaming in protest, his lungs on fire. The current still fought him, but now he had Anna's fragile form to protect. He kicked, he pulled, he fought. He focused on the distant, blurry figures on the shore, their shouts morphing from panic to encouragement. He could hear his own heartbeat, a frantic drum against the roar of the waves. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, his feet touched sand. Shaking, he stumbled forward, half carrying, half dragging Anna from the water. Hands reached out, strong and numerous, pulling them both onto the blessed, solid earth. Anna's parents were there in an instant, engulfing their daughter in a tangle of relieved sobs and frantic checks. Anna coughed, sputtering water, then started to cry, a weak, reedy sound that was nonetheless the most beautiful music Leo had ever heard. Leo collapsed onto the sand, gasping, shivering. His body ached, but it was a different kind of ache than the one he was used to. This was the ache of exertion, of a battle fought and won. The cold was still there, but it wasn't the icy grip of fear. It was the chill of the ocean, a temporary discomfort. A small crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of shock, relief, and awe. Anna's father knelt beside him, his eyes glistening. "Leo," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. You saved her. Thank you. Thank you." Leo just nodded, unable to speak, still trying to catch his breath, still trying to process the earthquake that had just ravaged his carefully constructed world. He looked back at the ocean. It still roared, still crashed, but for the first time in 12 years, it didn't feel like an insurmountable enemy. It felt like a force he had, for a fleeting, terrifying moment, met head-on and wrestled into submission. The story of Leo Fernandez, the quiet artist who feared the ocean, saving Anna, spread through Seabreeze like wildfire. He was no longer just the reclusive craftsman. He was the hero, the man who had faced his greatest fear and conquered it. People who had only offered polite nods now approached him with genuine warmth, their eyes filled with admiration and respect. He was invited for coffee, offered a seat at the local pub. His shop saw a steady stream of curious well-wishers and new customers. The attention was overwhelming at first. He wasn't comfortable with the praise, feeling unworthy, still haunted by the memory of Marco. But something had shifted inside him. The crack in the wall he'd built around his heart was widening. The guilt over Marco still lingered, a dull ache, but it was now accompanied by a nascent sense of peace, a quiet pride. He had faced the demon, and this time he had won. In the weeks that followed, Leo found himself drawn to the beach more often. Not just the boardwalk, but the sand itself. One evening, he walked to the edge, the gentle waves lapping at his bare feet, cool and inviting. He watched the sunset, the golden light painting the water in hues of orange and rose. And for the first time, he saw its beauty without the veil of fear. He dipped a toe, then his whole foot, then waded in up to his knees. The cold was refreshing, not terrifying. He felt the pull of the current, understood its power, but it no longer paralyzed him. He was learning to coexist. He started small. A morning swim in the calmer, designated areas, pushing himself a little further each day. The physical act of swimming, the rhythmic strokes, became a form of meditation, a way to process his trauma, to heal. He still held reverence for the ocean's power, but the fear had been replaced by a healthy respect and a newfound cautious love. His act of courage had an unexpected ripple effect on Seabreeze. The incident sparked a town-wide initiative for ocean safety. More lifeguards were hired, swimming lessons became mandatory for school children, and a local fund was created for beach safety equipment, passionately supported by Anna's grateful family. Anna, bright and bubbly again, visited his shop with her parents. She drew him a picture of a stick figure with a yellow swimsuit and a bigger stick figure with a determined face, swimming together in blue squiggles, under a big, smiling sun. She hugged him tightly, a gesture that filled his heart with a warmth he hadn't known possible. Leo joined the local beach safety committee, offering his insights, his presence a living testament to the importance of water safety. He even started volunteering to teach basic water confidence to younger kids, his calm demeanor and personal story proving incredibly effective. He never explicitly spoke of Marco, but his quiet patience and understanding resonated with those who harbored their own anxieties about the water. He realized saving Anna didn't erase Marco. Nothing ever would. But it had allowed him to live again, truly live, for the first time in 12 years. He was no longer just the boy who couldn't save his brother. He was the man who did save a child. The ocean no longer whispered only of loss. It spoke of resilience, of courage, and of the profound healing that could rise from the deepest fear. Leo Fernandez had found his peace, not by leaving Seabreeze or by forgetting his pain, but by diving headfirst into the very heart of it and emerging, against all odds, a beacon of hope. That will be all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. Goodbye.